Early in my singing career, my teacher, who I deeply respected, told me something that stopped me cold. He said that I didn't have, quote, the right foundation of confidence, end quote. That it was something that had to be cultivated from an early age, and that because of my lack of confidence, I was not cut out to be a performer. And I believed him. I mean, of course I did. He was my teacher. He was experienced and accomplished, and I was young and impressionable and already uncertain about my place in the world. So I took that belief, folded it up, and carried it around with me for years. And I used it, probably without even realizing it, to talk myself out of things, to shrink back, to reinforce my performance anxiety, and to quietly confirm for myself that maybe he was right. And it took me a very long time to understand that what he said was just a thought. His thought. Not a fact, not a verdict, a thought. And more importantly, that even if there had been something true in it at the time, it was never permanent. Confidence is not something you either have or you don't. It's a skill, and like any skill, you can build it. And that's what today's episode is about. Welcome to Your Passaggi Professor, a podcast for singers who want tools to bridge the gap between the hard skills we learn in music school and the soft skills we need to live focused, intentional lives. I'm your host, Sarah Neely, voice professor, director, and certified life coach. Each week, we'll talk about mindset, emotional regulation, boundaries, and more so you can navigate the passaggi of your life, both on and off the stage. Today, we're starting a two-part series on self-confidence. This first episode is going to lay the groundwork, what self-confidence actually is, why it's so hard to cultivate, and what's really going on when we feel like we don't have enough of it. Episode 13 will be the practical singer-specific application, or how you actually build confidence in the practice room, on stage, and in audition settings. So let's start at the beginning. I want to take a minute to talk about definitions, because I think we tend to use a few related words interchangeably when they're actually pointing at different things. So firstly, self-esteem. Self-esteem is your belief in your own worth, your sense that you deserve to be here, that you matter, that you have value as a human being. Then there's self-efficacy, which is your belief in your ability, specifically your belief that you can do a thing, learn a thing, or figure out a thing. It's more task or future focused. And in this context, self-confidence, as defined by the Life Coach School, which is the coaching framework I work from, it's a broader sense. It incorporates both of those things. Self-confidence is being secure in yourself and your abilities. It's your ability to trust yourself, knowing that you can experience any emotion without being destroyed by it. And it's your overall opinion of yourself. And I love that definition because it reframes confidence away from bravado and performance and skills and plants it firmly in something internal that you can control. It's not about how you look to the room, it's about how you relate to yourself. And here's the thing that changed everything for me. Self-confidence is a skill. It's not a personality trait. It's not something you were either born with or you weren't. It can be learned, practiced, and grown, just like your technique. So if confidence is a skill, why don't more of us have it? Why is it so hard? Well, there are a few reasons. The first one is just our brains. Our brains are wired to scan for danger and problems. It's a survival mechanism. It kept our ancestors alive, but in the context of modern life and singing career, it means our default mode is to find reasons why something could go wrong, why we might fail, why we're not ready. Your brain isn't broken when it does that. It's just doing its job. But its job is not optimized for courage or creative risk-taking. And the second reason is that most of us haven't learned how to manage our emotions. When we're afraid of how something might feel, i.e., rejection, humiliation, embarrassment, we do everything we can to avoid putting ourselves in situations where we might feel those things. And that avoidance feels like safety in the short term, but what it's actually doing is shrinking our world and keeping us from the very experiences that would build our confidence. The third one is perfectionism. And I think this is one that lives in every singer I've met. When you're constantly measuring yourself against some unreachable ideal, your voice against the voice on the recording, your audition against the person who got the role, doubt is inevitable. Perfectionism and self-confidence are fundamentally incompatible because one requires you to already be perfect and the other requires you to believe in yourself even when you're not. And here's something I want to address head on because I think it gets in the way for a lot of us, especially in the singing world. I don't know about you, but what I learned growing up was that it was not cool to be a diva. Those were the singers who were mean and nasty. People talked badly about them behind their backs, and they encouraged a whole culture of competitiveness and ugliness. So I defaulted to trying to stay uber humble so as not to be perceived as bad or arrogant. And like me, some people resist building self-confidence because they're afraid it means becoming arrogant. But those two things are not the same at all. Arrogance is the belief that you are better than other people. It's comparative. It requires putting others down to prop yourself up. And it comes, interestingly, from a place of actually being very low in self-confidence. Arrogance is scarcity dressed up as superiority. True self-confidence is the opposite. It comes from abundance. When you genuinely feel secure in yourself, you don't need anyone else to be less. You can look around a room full of talented singers and think, they are incredible, and so am I. There's room for all of us. Real confidence makes you more generous, not less. So if the fear of seeming arrogant has been keeping you from working on your confidence, I want you to let that go. Those are two separate things. And here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe a little uncomfortable. Most of our self-confidence problems are belief problems. Beliefs are just thoughts that we've rehearsed so many times they stop feeling like thoughts. They feel like facts. I told you at the beginning of this episode about a belief I carried for years, that I didn't have the right foundation of confidence, that it was too late, that other people had something I was never going to have. I didn't choose that belief intentionally. I absorbed it from someone I trusted, and then I rehearsed it, I recycled it over and over until it became part of my identity. And most of our limiting beliefs work exactly like that. We learn them early, sometimes from teachers, sometimes parents, sometimes from a single moment that just landed wrong, and then we carry them forward without ever really examining them. Here are some common ones I see in singers. Rejection means I'm not good enough. That one keeps people from taking risks because the cost of failing feels unbearable. Other people's opinions define my value. This one is absolutely everywhere in a field where you're constantly being evaluated, cast or not cast, accepted or rejected. Confidence is something you either have or you don't. That was mine, and maybe it's yours too. Fear means I'm not confident. This is a big one, so I'm going to come back to this in a second. The important thing to understand is this. None of these are true. They are not facts. They feel true because they're familiar. And your brain likes familiar. It's efficient. It doesn't have to work hard to think a thought it's already thought 1,000 times. But familiar isn't the same as accurate, and it definitely isn't the same as fixed. If a belief isn't serving you, you can change it. And that's not toxic positivity. That is literally how the brain works. So I said earlier that one of the reasons confidence is hard is that we avoid painful emotions. And I want to dig into this a little more because I think it might be the most important thing in this whole episode. The biggest single thing you can do to build your self-confidence is to develop the belief that you can feel hard emotions and survive them. That sounds simple, but it's not easy. Most of us have spent years, our whole lives really, trying to protect ourselves from embarrassment, rejection, disappointment, and failure. We avoid auditions, we hold back in studio class, we don't submit the recording, we don't ask for the opportunity, all because some part of us believes that if we fail or if we're rejected, that feeling will be unbearable. But here's the thing. You've already felt those things, probably many times, and you're still here. You're still singing, you're still going. The worst thing that can happen when you take a risk is a negative emotion. That's it. And when you know, really know, that you can feel a hard thing and not be destroyed by it, the whole equation changes. Suddenly, things that used to feel like threats become information. Rejection isn't evidence that you're not good enough, it's just data. A cracked high note isn't proof that you're failing, it's part of the process. And this is why emotional processing and learning how to actually feel an emotion all the way through, instead of buffering it or running away from it, is such a direct path to building confidence. When the worst thing you're afraid of loses its power over you, you become braver. And one last concept I want to leave you with today is your self-confidence is tied directly to your opinion of yourself. And here's the thing most people don't realize. Your opinion of yourself does not have to be proven. It doesn't have to be earned. It's just a thought. And you get to decide what that thought is. Think about someone you know who is genuinely self-confident. They believe they're capable, strong, worthy, and they still make mistakes. They still have bad days. They still get things wrong. But that belief in themselves stays relatively stable because they've decided it's true. Not because they've proven it every single day. Your identity beliefs, those deep thoughts you hold about who you are, determine your consistent state of being. But your identity is not fixed. It's created daily by the thoughts you choose to think about yourself. And changing them is not an overnight process. It's brain training, honestly. You wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to be strong, so you can't think one new thought and expect to feel magically confident. It takes repetition, and it takes being willing to feel the resistance that comes up when you're trying to change a deep belief. That resistance is normal. It means you're doing it right. So, let me leave you with a few thoughts I want you to try on this week. Not as affirmations you have to believe instantly, just as things to sit with. What others think about me is about them, not me. My potential is limitless. The worst thing that can happen is a feeling, and I can handle a feeling. Failure is how I earn success. And maybe most importantly, courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. All right, friends. Next week, in episode 13, lucky number 13, we're going to bring all of this into the practice room, and we're going to talk about the specific, concrete ways you build self-confidence as a singer through your daily work. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And as a side note, I'm wrapping up this episode, and then I'm taking Chasey Poodle Doodle for a nice walk. It's getting nice and springy here. It's been actually kind of hot. We had to turn our AC on. But I'm going to go take care of myself, get some exercise, take good care of yourselves, get the sleep, drink the water, eat the vegetables and the protein. Thank you so much for listening to Your Passaggi Professor with Sarah Neely. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. This really helps the podcast reach more singers just like you. And if you're ready to learn the life skills that smooth the passaggi of your life, you can follow me on Instagram at your_passaggi_professor. That's Passaggi with 2 S's and 2 G's. There's a link in my bio where you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter and learn more about working with me. See you next time.